Anne, I would like to thank you, first off, for changing the tone. I was beginning to think that this was going to be a positive spin for the whole day, and I think that that would have meant that we would have missed a great opportunity here. So, I'm also thrilled to have Jay here. It's been a tough job swimming upstream for the last couple of years. My name's Sarah Miles. I wrote the Christchurch Fiasco, the Insurance Aftershock, and I'm thrilled to be able to take this opportunity to speak to you all today. The book looks at the Christchurch situation and the global situation of insurance. The foreword in the book was written by a Mr. Herman Weifels, who perhaps here in New Zealand you're not familiar with, but he's very well known throughout the rest of the world. He was the chairman for the World Bank for quite a number of years and the chairman of Rabobank International for many years. And he wrote in his foreword, "This book could easily have been written in anger, and it is a credit to the author that it was not." Well, let me assure you, it was written in anger. And over the last 2.5 years, my anger has morphed into disgust. And there's one message that I'd like you to take home today. It's a message I'd like you to take home to your friends, to your colleagues, to your family members. And that message is that in New Zealand currently, there is no insurance policyholder protection. Policyholder protection in this country is an urban myth. And that means that in a catastrophe situation, you will not get the protection that you've paid for. The reality is that 2.5 years later, my figures indicate that there are some 200,000 people in Christchurch who are still affected by the failure of insurance companies to settle claims. That's half the population. And I see evidence of this failure all around me. People living in uninhabitable homes, people who've lost jobs, people struggling to pay their mortgages, rates, the cost of temporary accommodation on top of mortgage payments. Daily, people are going broke. And then I hear that there are repair strategies with timeframes of 2016, 2017. And meanwhile, the elderly are dying. And what is the insurance industry doing? The insurance industry here in Christchurch is sitting and waiting. Its bottom lines are bloating. They're minimising their losses with every deliberate time delay. This is the reason why the Canterbury recovery is so slow. And yes, it's not a local problem, it's a global problem. But this is an issue that's not about the poor, it's not about the rich, it's not about the educated, it's not about the uneducated. We're all in the same boat here. It's proving darn near impossible to resolve an insurance claim. And yet, as I look around the world, I see that in places like the US, after Hurricane Sandy, 6 months on, 60% of their claims have been settled. After the Queensland floods, it took 5 months to settle all those claims. And here we are, 2.5 years on, and we have allegedly only settled 30% of the claims. To me, this suggests that there's absolutely an ideological misfit between the conservation of shareholder profit and the recovery of a community post-disaster. The two simply don't sit together. So I've got 2 things on my agenda that I'd like you to take home today, and the first of those is policyholder protection. What I'd like to see is major regulatory and legislative change. I think we should have the introduction of an alternative dispute resolution forum along the lines of a mediation service. And here we have, sitting in New Zealand at this very moment, somebody who's had a tremendous amount of experience in setting up mediation services, the government should be taking this opportunity to sit with Jay and ask him as much as they can about how we might go about doing this. I'd also like to see the reintroduction, or not the reintroduction, but the introduction of exemplary and punitive damages into our legal system as a way of calling the insurance industry to account. Currently, the accessibility to our courts is far outside the reach of many, many thousands of policyholders. If you've lost a home that's worth over $200,000 and you want to take your insurer to court, it's going to cost you at least $70,000. How many average households have $70,000 to spend? So what's the alternative? To walk away. I think we need also an independent insurance commissioner. This is critical. The savings and insurance ombudsman funded by the industry is hardly independent. These things need to happen so that we can restore our democratic rights. Actually, what I'm proposing is a new insurance system altogether. I think we should completely abandon private insurance in this country. I think that we could set up a system in which the government could provide catastrophe insurance and property insurance generally. We could call it Kiwi Shaw, a public system. We've had one of these in the past. It was so successful, they privatised it. I'd like to see EQC completely restructured, and my God, doesn't it need it? I'd like to see a system that covers both residential and commercial property. This wouldn't cost any more money. There would be no additional taxes involved. It wouldn't cost any more than the current private insurance premiums, and there would be no extraction of profits. The premiums could be tagged to local rating values and administered through local councils and paid directly to EQC. And the benefits of a system like this are tremendous. There'd be no foreign ownership. The money would stay onshore. It would avoid the profit-driven mentality. And my estimate is that there's at least $2 billion worth of property premiums on an annual basis, and this money would instantly replenish the Natural Disaster Fund. The organisation could operate as a Crown entity. This would also mean that there would be trained staff throughout the country, so that in the event of a catastrophe they could quickly manoeuvre themselves and we wouldn't have to be bringing in foreign overseas people. It would essentially mimic the operational structure of the private market, but without the focus on shareholder and profit. So what I'd like to say to the insurance industry, are there any insurance industry people here today?
Who will admit it?
Sorry? Oh, good. Okay. Is that Tim? I can't see with the light on. Okay. Well, this is what I have to say. I'd like to see the private insurance industry clean up its act. I think the private insurance industry needs to stop meddling with the lives of Cantabrians. We have had enough. After 2.5 years, I am utterly disgusted with the performance of the private insurance industry, which is proving conclusively that it does not meet our needs. Cantabrians are tired of listening to the weak, uncredible responses from the Insurance Council and private insurance senior management. And I have this to say to the government. From a self-interested corporate stance, indeed you have succeeded in increasing corporate profitability, but at the expense of the destruction of a city. Rather than the facilitator of solutions, the government has become an obstruction to recovery and a perpetrator of dishonest practice. And I highlight the red zone as I say that. Personally, I hold you accountable for having destroyed many democratic procedures, damaged communities, challenged and weakened local government, ignored the willingness of communities to participate in their recovery. There has been a total disregard for the people. We see government nominees everywhere, but little true representation of the people. The Sarah battle cry, "leave it to the market," is old and doesn't work. And it's evident that after 2.5 years, the pseudo-government top-down management style or policy is part of the problem and not the solution. And let's face it, there's been a total disregard for the domestic sector, and I heard that again this morning as the first plenary speakers were talking. So in conclusion, I'd like to come back to my original point. There's no policyholder protection in this country, and we cannot leave the recovery to the private insurance industry or the corporate intentions of our government. And it's for this reason that I propose that the nation should introduce Kiwi Shaw, whereby future governments of any colour take full responsibility for the protection of the real estate property of their citizens. It won't cost any more, and I can't see any reason why we shouldn't do it. So thank you for your attention. And should anybody be interested in reading the Christchurch Fiasco, I have some copies with me. Okay, thank you.